Can they see that?
Yeah.
My tire exploded on the way home last night. I'm safe. Everything's fine. I want to teach you a lesson, share a lesson with you that you're in danger, especially if you've already broken the 7-figure barrier. This is especially for you if your law firm is over $1 million, because you probably are beginning to think, I got this, right? Yeah, I got this. Look at me. I got $1 million firm. You are in danger of backsliding badly. It's when you think you've got it that your subconscious is waiting. It's sitting there, it's waiting in the background to spring into action and snap your old programming back into place. 7 years ago, I was flat broke. You've heard me tell the story. Some of you have heard me tell the story. I'm not going to tell the whole story again about how when I was broke, I had an old truck. It had 4 flat tires, and I had to keep tire goop in the tires all the time, and an electric pump, and I would pump up the tires every 3 days, and then they would go down, and you've heard this story. That mindset that I was in back then was a scarcity, poverty mindset. Most of the decisions I made back then were driven by lack mentality and lack of money. I made lots of money-driven decisions, which were almost all turned out to be much more expensive decisions. Whenever you make a decision based on money, chances are it's the wrong decision. So here's what happened. Just to put this in context, as of this recording, I don't know when you'll end up watching this, my firm grosses about $600,000 a month. This year we'll do just over $8 million with some extra workshops and things like that. I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying this to put this in context, to impress this upon you. I'm sitting here in my private library of a home that Allie and I bought. We paid $2.5 million for this home. It is, can I show them? This is just to kind of give you a sense of how we're living. It's pretty nice, right? But last night, my subconscious snapped my old fucked up programming back on me like a motherfucker and really fucked me up. And I want to share the story with you. This isn't so much to teach you a lesson. This is a warning. This is to put you on guard. This is a cautionary tale so that you're on guard to prevent this from happening to you. If you're a member of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, this is when you reach out to your coach. This is when you reach out to your managing partner. This is when you post on the forum when something like this is starting to happen and you sense it happening. I was fatigued. I was really tired. I was tired going into the training because, like I said, I'm not feeling well. Then I had 3 amazing, they were exciting. We had, everyone was so excited. Everyone was going to make so much more money. Everyone came up to me afterwards and was telling me how great it was, and it was an awesome program, and they're going to make a lot more money, and their non-attorney salespeople are going to liberate them to do all kinds of amazing things. It was a great program. It wasn't like it beat me down with bad things. It was great, but it was still fatiguing me. And I had to spend 3 days away from home unexpectedly, so I wasn't emotionally preparing myself to be away from home. And then what happened was the venue was supposed to be at the Ritz-Carlton here in Coconut Grove, which is a very short distance from my home. But because the Ritz-Carlton was affected by the hurricane, my team sprung into action and we moved it to the Waldorf Astoria. Allie, you're moving the camera too much. And we moved it to the Waldorf Astoria in Boca Raton, which is an hour and a half up the road. And they asked, do you want us to get you a car service? Do you want the driver to just take you up there and take you back? And I said, no, it's an hour and a half. I got people to call on the phone. It's no big deal. And I just jumped in the car and drove up there. I'm not saying that was a mistake. That was just a choice that I made. the decision, the problem was I was fatigued, and at the end of the event, I decided to come home because I want to get home to my family. And anyway, the tire blew. I showed the picture of that already, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like losing track of what I'm doing. The tire blew on the car. And here's where my old programming snapped back and started fucking me up. First, the tire blew. These things happen, right? I called AAA. I also called the Florida Highway Patrol to see whichever tow truck got there first. It was the Florida Highway Patrol tow truck that got there first. The guy came. He saw that the car was not in a place where the tire could be, where it was too many cars coming by. It was not a safe place. By this time, my mind is already a little bit snapping back to that old place because I was feeling vulnerable because I'm sitting in the car wedged up against the wall on the left lane, and there's cars whizzing by, and I was like feeling vulnerable. I was listening to music, the air conditioning was running, the engine was on. I wasn't really in much danger, but I was feeling vulnerable, and that's the key. My feelings were beginning to take control over my mind. I was starting to become feelings driven, and that's bad for business. That's bad for you. So the guy got there, and first words out of his mouth are, "You couldn't have picked a worse place to get stuck." And it was like it was an attack on me. It was like an attack on me for like choosing that that's where I was going to have a problem. And because I had sat there for 45 minutes feeling vulnerable, my feelings were already raw, and I was fatigued. And the key is I was fatigued, and I wasn't really in control of my thinking. My feelings were beginning to take control of me. Where are your feelings beginning to take control of you? Maybe because of fatigue, maybe because of intimidation, maybe because you have other people acting upon you who are trying to play on your feelings. And he was kind of an intimidating looking guy, and tattoos all over his fingers, and he wasn't unpleasant. He was actually kind of friendly, but he attacked me first thing, and it was late at night, and he said, "I'll take you to a parking lot, a gas station nearby off the highway where it'll be more safe." We're driving. Thank you very much. We're driving. He says, "Hey, where are you going?" I told him where I'm going. It was 30 miles, 40 miles down the road. And he said, "Hey, I can call my friend. My company won't let me go that far, but my friend will come and pick you up, and he'll take you the rest of the way tonight." And I was thinking, okay, I'll take the car to the tire store near my house, drop it off, take an Uber home, and, I'll get home 45 minutes late. No big deal. But then, money. Fucking money. This shit. Fucking money started to fuck with my head. And I thought, see, you gotta remember, by this point, I was not the owner of an $8 million business, living in a $2.5 million home, driving a Mercedes with another Mercedes in the driveway, with, a personal executive assistant, with a house manager, with a staff of 30 people. I was back. I was that scared, broke guy. I was emotionally that person at that time. And I thought, towing is expensive. My mind said, towing is expensive. And I said, does your friend take AAA? Who the fuck cares if his friend takes AAA? I mean, honestly, if his friend takes AAA, his friend takes AAA. If his friend doesn't take AAA, what fucking difference does it make? He asked his friend said no, and I said, okay, well, just drop me off and I'll get AAA to come get me. Holy shit. Okay, this was about 8:30 in the evening. He drops me off, and here's the thing. He dropped me off in a really seedy neighborhood. It was a parking lot. There was like a strip club on the corner. There was he dropped me in the parking lot of where he dropped me off was a tattoo parlor, and nothing wrong with tattoos and tattoo parlor. This was just a really seedy tattoo parlor around the corner from a strip club. I mean, you could just kind of imagine. It was just a really seedy, the energy was all fucked up. started sinking into this place of being that guy who used to have to pump up his tires, who used to have to scrounge literally for grocery money, who used to have to make all kinds of decisions to try to save $1. I mean, you got to remember, a set of 4 tires for the truck was $700. For a matter of only $700, I spent a year, almost a year and a half, pumping up the tires and putting myself through that daily humiliation. Every time I went to the truck, I was afraid, I was worried, I was nervous. Every time I went to the truck, if I had to go to a meeting, I would be worried about would the tires be flat, would the tires not be flat, that I had to go out to the truck ahead of time to blow up the tires because my hands would get all filthy, and I'd have to go back to the apartment and wash my hands. I mean, this is what I put myself through for a year for only $700. You got to imagine the mindset that I was in back then. It was bad. Allie, put both hands on there. You're going back and forth.
Yeah, but Dina is gonna.
Yeah, but you got to imagine the mindset that I was in. It was a bad place. It was a dark place, and I next thing you know, I found myself in that place. AAA, I'm waiting there for an hour and a half. Finally, what they show up with, they show up with a van to change the tire. I don't have a spare tire. This is the car. It doesn't come with a spare tire. And I called them back, and by this point, all of my negotiating skills are gone. All of my higher brain function is not even working at this point. At this point, I am just functioning on that old, instinctive, fear-based programming, and I was an asshole. And the AAA dispatcher chose to do me no favors and announced it'll be an hour and a half, and no, they wouldn't do me any favors, and no, they wouldn't cut me any slack. I mean, it just went from bad to worse. Here's the kicker. The kicker of the whole thing. The kicker of the whole thing is, and this is just a fucking mistake. As it turns out, the AAA subscription that I have only covers 5 miles. So I'm going to be paying like $100 to get the car from Aventura down to the tire place today anyway. And it's like $90, $100, $200. I mean, like, what's the difference? Like, so what? The money is so inconsequential, but the point I'm making is I allowed the money to drive my decision because I let my guard down. I let my vigilance down, and I got sucked back into that old way of thinking. And here's the point for you. You're most vulnerable for this happening when you're tired, when you're fatigued, which is different than tired, when you're stressed out, when you got people attacking you on things, and when you're in an unfamiliar environment, which I was in a very unfamiliar environment, sitting on the side of the road, wedged in against the guardrail with cars whizzing by. You know, when you think you've got it, that is when you are also very vulnerable, because when you think you got it, you know, you relax. I live in this wonderful home in this wonderful gated community where everyone's nice to me, and I got a wonderful staff that looks out for me, and I go to events and I do events, and the whole hotel staff is nice to me. And I went from that environment to a shitty environment so quickly that it caught me unexpected. It caught me by surprise. Allie, we see this happening all the time with lawyers, and it's once you're over $1 million that it happens the most. It's like, I'm hot shit. This is the tow truck company calling. I'm gonna take this.